Hi, I'm Matt Mayberry. If you look on social media, I am the Antichrist. I want to pave the White Mountain National Forest, and while we're at it, we're going to fill in Lake Winnisquam. So, please, if you have an environmental disaster you'd like to have conducted, please see me. Happy to do it. I've been doing this for about 35 years as a licensed real estate broker. I've been with the home builders now for about 4 years. As many of you know, I ran for Congress in 2020. I successfully got the silver medal in that one. You got the joke. And I spent some time doing COVID vaccines with Stratford County Community Health, because my background in the military is running logistics. So we processed thousands of people who wanted to get the vaccine. If you didn't want it, keep driving, no problem. It also delivered 3,500 meals through Stratford County Meals on Wheels, because those folks had no way to get out to the grocery stores. Got a call one day on my route from the home builders saying, "Hey, you're unemployed. We have a job for you." And I've been here about 4 years. When I came in, we had 239 members. We now today have 566 members. We have doubled our budget and our impact. We're closely aligned with 13 bills that touch housing. A lot of them cut state government, a lot of them they do touch some local planning board issues that we're going to talk about. They're not all bad, and from your perspective, they may not be all that great. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm George Hansel, former mayor of Keene. I was on the planning board in Keene for 12 years. I was a city councilor in Keene. Also a silver medalist in the congressional.
What's my next?
The Olympian one, yes. Go for the gold, Joe.
Okay.
Come on.
But I'm also a housing developer, so my business partner and I, we try to create about 40 units a year, essentially, and we build apartments for rent mostly. We also do some single-family home development, but not a lot. Right now, I've got a project that's under construction where we're converting an old mill and converting the second floor into workforce housing. So we do everything from affordable apartments, not subsidized, but we keep them as affordable as we can, pretty much trying to stay in line with the HUD 65% limits every year, but we just do that because we think there's a need. Up to higher end sort of condos and stuff like that. And so I see this housing issue from a bunch of different angles. One, this is my business, this is important because it's how I make my livelihood, but I also understand the sort of local decision-making process and the fight to have local control over land use planning. I was really involved with helping to rewrite Keene's land use codes and zoning codes when I was mayor, and Keene, along with a couple other communities in New Hampshire, are really, really forward-thinking when it comes to updating our codes. A lot of these bills that are going through the legislature right now, Keene has already done. So like these things are not going to affect Keene all that much, but they're still really important. And yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm Representative Joe Alexander. I want to welcome you to Goffstown, New Hampshire. This is where I live and where I represent. This is my 4th term in the legislature, and I like to say that I was into housing before it was as cool as it is now. So in 2018, my first term, Governor Sununu brought in a couple of young legislators and wanted to talk about housing because it's an issue that affects young people, but we found that it really affects everybody, like all generations of people. And I have, first 2 terms, I was working on some of the priorities on housing, but then we started getting into where the legislature really has to be in the center of any solution to the housing issue. So Speaker Packard created a special committee on housing last term in 2022, and that has evolved into a full committee on housing. Representative Miles is here, she's on the committee, awesome on housing issues. So happy to be here and look forward to talking about some of the solutions on the table.
So I'm interested in housing as a business owner in southern New Hampshire and as chair of the SU 39 school board. Obviously, more housing means more kids. That's not a bad thing. We like children, we like families in the Republican Party, but you would not know that on Facebook these days. And so I do want to make sure that all of us are thinking as we leave here that we're holding our values in balance and not throwing out one thing to value another. We can have all of it at the same time. We can, I think I appreciate about some of the bills, and my reason for supporting some of them is the value of the individual rights of the property owner, even above local control for me. So I'm gonna ask Representative Alexander to give us an overview of a couple of the more controversial bills and why the House leadership takes the position they take on this.
So I would say that the whole conversation about being Republican is I feel like we campaigned on the party of strong families. Like, we support parental rights, we support like educational choice, like we support like the most local involvement you can have in education is parents being in charge of their child's education. But then we're going to turn around and say, wait a second, the town has control over somebody's property. What we need to say is that we need to be the party of strong families, and strong families need places to live here. They need housing, and I think that the most local control you can have is your own property rights. And I was on a panel with Matt Mayberry earlier this week, and we were talking about like who has a constitutional obligation to protect your property rights. The town of Goffstown does not have a constitution, right? So the town of Goffstown can trample over whatever, can do whatever they want. The state of New Hampshire has a constitution, and in that constitution, we're responsible for protecting property rights. And I think that that's where we lose kind of, I feel like the party's lost its way on this housing issue. We should be the party of strong families, supporting families owning homes and living in towns, because these families vote for Republicans. They support Republican values. So when we have people living together in communities, that's where we are strongest. So one of my bills that finally passed the Senate yesterday, HB 577, so proud of it. It's relative to accessory dwelling units. It allows the opportunity for you to build a detached ADU and maybe a barn or a garage or an existing structure, or build your own, so that we can have those generational options so families can stay together. So we're talking about, Senator Magoo said it best. It's like elderly parents living with their grandchildren. You cover childcare costs with that. You cover housing costs. Your property taxes are lower because you have something to offset it. I mean, this is really a win-win-win for everybody in the community. So when we talk about like property rights, that's what I'm talking about, is like having a more centralized local control over your own property.
I got to file on
Go ahead.
just for a half a second on that, because I thought that 84 might have been the most important bill, but I was wrong. First of all, I'm not totally sure it's going to cross the finish line. But this bill, 577, is far surpassed it. It is healthcare and housing all in one delicious package. It is the family. It is the family unit together. It's when you want your kids not to leave home just yet, right? Yeah, I'm pointing at you. When you don't want to live in the basement, but the backyard's okay, right? You want your kids to live at home, just not in the home.
Isabella, I've got a garden shed for you.
See, who hasn't seen those Reed's Ferry sheds, right? Don't they look like the tiny home? No, I'm not even joking. Or you've got the barn or the garage with the bonus room that you'd never finish. Now you got a reason to finish. Property values goes up. Neighbors are none the wiser. Your property doesn't look any different. Nobody gets upset about it, but your property value goes up. Probably pay a little more taxes. Kids get to stay at home, and you have built-in childcare for your disabled parents, your aging parents. It's all good. Christmases are easier, Thanksgivings are easier, they get their privacy, you get your privacy, it's all good. And think about other cultures that have done this over the years, right? Who doesn't have a little bit of admiration for how the Japanese family units stay together and age generationally? Indian culture does the same thing, right? It's not such a bad thing. I think back to early Reagan years, and there's plenty of people here old enough to remember it. And it was the breakdown of the American family unit that's, in my opinion, and I'm a little philosophical, that started some of societal problems today. If we ultimately return to some of that, I think it'll be for the better.
So you mentioned a second bill. I don't know if you want to comment on the bill that you think may not be.
Senate Bill 84.
These guys.
So a lot of the things we're doing on the state level is legalizing things that should have been legal to begin with. So when you talk about small lot sizes, I guess that bill would focus on creating the small lot sizes because a lot of the cost of building housing is the land cost. So by legalizing smaller lot sizes, you're able to have smaller houses, and it's going to cut costs. I am supportive of the bill. We'll see where it goes in the House, but it's already passed the Senate. It's a good bill.
I think just in general, the housing bills in the legislature, I don't see them as that extreme. I think there's a lot of rhetoric around this is taking away local control and all of that. A lot of communities in New Hampshire, as I mentioned in my introduction, have already done a lot of this stuff. What you really see on a macro level are changing preferences in housing. One, people are looking for opportunities to live in smaller spaces. I mean, that's something that's relatively new, but there are financial factors in that, and then just younger people wanting less to take care of and wanting an easier lifestyle. I think that goes into it a lot. I read this study a couple days ago about home ownership and changing trends in people wanting to own homes versus renting homes. It said 64% of millennials who had bought a home regretted it. Isn't that a shocking statistic compared to baby boomers, which it was less than a third, right, of baby boomers who had bought a home regretted it. That says to me that there are big shifts happening. You're going to see a lot more people looking for opportunities to rent. So we need to make available different opportunities for them, different housing options for families to rent, for young professionals to rent, for retarees who are downsizing to rent. I mean, that's one thing as a developer that I'm trying to sort of move and take action on and meet those needs. And so the tension in New Hampshire, I don't think is between the state and the larger communities that maybe have a professional staff that have been helping them modernize their codes. What you have are some smaller communities who maybe aren't as in tune with some of these big changes that are happening in housing. And I see the state right now stepping in and just sort of coaxing them to make incremental progress. I don't think local control or local decision-making on land use should ever go away. The decisions that impact our communities most are land use decisions, and they should have a component of it that is made locally. I mean, I think that makes total sense. I don't see any of these bills taking away that local control, and this is coming from a mayor, this is coming from a planning board member. I look at these things through that lens, and when I'm analyzing these bills, yes, they set up some guardrails, but they don't take away the ability for local communities to plan how their communities are developed. They don't take away the existence of a planning board, the fact that large projects need to be approved. The other thing that I think people falsely believe is that any of these tweaks or changes are going to cause huge amounts of urban sprawl and changing these communities overnight. I can tell you from a developer's point of view, that's just extremely unlikely to happen. When I'm looking for opportunities for development, the number one thing I'm looking for are public utilities, water and sewer. They're critical for any development of substance. And there are just very few places in New Hampshire that have that type of infrastructure available. And where it is available, most of the people are used to a higher level of development, where these bills are not really going to affect it very much. And so that's something, when you're looking at your community, think and worrying about how these bills could affect it. Do you have public water and sewer all over your town where developers are gonna come in and just put up big apartment buildings and all that stuff? Very unlikely. The possibility of putting in new utilities is very unlikely too, because it's just so expensive. And that's the bigger problem that New Hampshire is facing. We've built out a lot of these easily developable areas that have the infrastructure. We need to be thinking about where are the places we want to add new public infrastructure to allow for this larger scale development, because that's going to take away a lot of these concerns. It will limit sprawl because it'll allow us to build denser buildings and housing units and all that stuff closer to these utilities. So if we really want to move this conversation along, we should be talking about how are we going to put in new public infrastructure like water and sewer.
Along those lines, people like to take showers and go to the bathroom, so clearly that's the limitation in, my town. I live in Amherst, and we have no public infrastructure. We all have wells and our own septic system, so, from your perspective, what's the financial impact of these developments? Trying to develop infrastructure with water and sewage, is that just completely infeasible for towns to look at and would require some extraordinary level of investment from the state, which probably wouldn't be coming, or what?
I think that's the bigger issue. Or you have the public systems, not all are at capacity by any means, but those that are, I mean, the thought of increasing that capacity substantially is daunting, and I don't know where the funds would come from.
If I can interject, when I was on the planning board in Amherst, we looked at extending sewer down Route 101A and pumping it to the Merrimack station. They had capacity when Budweiser went to their own system. The cost, if I remember correctly, and that's got to be back in 2019 or 2020, was about $43 million to get that sewer line out and to extend Hemachuk's water lines. The federal government cut back. Now when developers come in and the planning board asks them, well, can you extend the water line? There's no more federal subsidy for that, so it comes directly out of the developer's pocket, and it is prohibitively expensive. The amount of density that they have to complement their project with in order to justify brings densities down well beyond what the planning board has a stomach for. So there's lots of financial barriers to infrastructure.
And I'll
So
tell you,
you're saying it would be feasible if you could build very dense areas, because then you get enough people living there to justify putting what would amount to essentially 3 times Amherst's annual town budget for just one project.
But I'm wondering, and I don't know if you're aware, that Pennachuck now does come down 101A and into my neighborhood, like Eastern Avenue, as a response to the PFAS issue. And so there are places even in Amherst where you can extend those networks a little bit, but you can't build houses, right? Because they're not lot sizes of, in New Hampshire, in Amherst, I think we have the 2 acre minimum. So this isn't gonna change, what you all are doing won't change in Amherst, but it is looking at, again, if you are going to have utilities come into rural communities, you don't have the density of that house building.
a bigger problem with utilities are the local politics involved. Independent water commissions with unelected people who have a lot of say on how things happen, what the fees are associated with connecting to the infrastructure. Or in really small places, there's one guy who knows the public water system and he becomes like a king because like no one's going to challenge them because who knows, who knows if there is capacity in that system or not, who knows what. There's usually one person in these communities that knows it, and that's a bigger issue. It's not really I'm not as worried as a developer going to get through a planning board or describe my project or meet what the town or city wants. It's that one guy that's sort of in the back office and whether I get his thumbs up or thumbs down. That's what keeps me up at night.
A couple of things. First of all, when you're talking about being able to put additions on your homes, now, what's the square footage you allow?
950 square feet.
Well, that's better, because now it's like 700.
It's 750 to now 950.
Well, it's good. My kids kicked me out of my house almost, but we kicked them out. We were gonna go to Florida, so we were gonna put an addition on our house.
And you could do the 950, but you can also extend it if you talk with the town
Right.
and work with them, so you could do larger.
Okay, one other thing I wanted to point out, being that I'm from Nashua, we own Pennachuck Water. We're the ones who own it. And, which was, I think, the biggest mistake in the world that we bought, because I was on the board at that point. Manchester owned it, but they owned it for an eternity. We came in because we didn't want a French company to buy it. It became a big debacle. Big politics last night with this whole thing. But I was on the Board of Education and we were doing a redistricting. And I wanna get your opinion on this, because I believe what the report said. Being that I'm from New York, as you can hear from my accent, I guess, yeah. People who have kids do not raise them in apartments. Unless you live in a big city, because that's the way of life, basically. And the report showed, because our population on students had decreased so long over years, that's what you have to look at, the study on how the population is going, because birth rates have come down also. National roll apartments now. There's basically no thing, because it costs too much, and the mayor doesn't want that, and everything is being clustered downtown. I mean, it's becoming a nightmare. We're gonna look like Boston soon with what's going on here. But when you're taking a look at apartments, and you know that what the study said, and you know the reality was there, because before COVID even, we were over 11,000 students, we had like 9,700 plus kids now. So if parents have young kids, and a lot of their dreams still are with the parents, they want those homes, and those single-family homes are not available, because I don't like to call myself an elderly person, because those senior citizens, I'm 71, so I'm not elderly, my parents were elderly. We're not giving up what we have, and I was gonna give it up for my son, but then we couldn't go to Florida because of what happened down in Florida, basically. We're not gonna give up, because where do we go? And if we don't like where we go, we can never come back. So you got that problem here, that us seniors are not giving up our property. That's our gold mine, which we're losing out on because of what's happened with the economy and but if we're not giving up and new homes aren't being built, people who want to eventually get into that house and gonna have 1, 2, maybe even 3 kids if you're lucky, that's not gonna happen now in the state. And I can't see with the apartments, you're gonna fill it up with the younger people, the people who, and I know the mayor of Nashua wants that train to come. That's why he's clustering so much, which is, the federal dollars are just not coming anymore, and, which is a blessing. But that's where the dilemma is gonna come, workforce housing, affordable housing, and it's just not there. When you're paying as much as a mortgage.
And I think what we need to do is we also need to talk about attainable housing. Because when you talk about workforce housing, your stigma default is low income. You kind of just go, we don't say in public, that's where you might go in your head. We need to talk about attainable housing. I'm not a fan of the zoning regulations in Hanover, because they have a 5-acre minimum. Yet they complain the most about not being have good workforce. They have doctors and surgeons at one of the world-class hospitals in the world who are living in hotel rooms, not because they can't find housing, but because they can't afford the housing. That's there. Let's talk about some of the numbers of New Hampshire to give you folks some data points to take away from this. 84% of New Hampshire is protected by forest. Conservation easements, White Mountain National Forest, watersheds, 84% of New Hampshire is protected. Can't go anywhere. So we're already talking about the 16% that's left out there. In 2024, 5,049 building permits were issued in the state of New Hampshire. We're starting to drown. We have to pick up pace a little bit more on this. And I want to talk a little bit about local control, just for a quick second. It's all about the stories. In March of this year, a developer of ours went to the town of Barrington, was going to buy 200 acres. They had 1.8 acre zoning, no problem. Come back up. Under SB 84, the rezoning, 67% of New Hampshire already complies with that. The vast majority of you folks operate under that already.
All 4 of the towns in my Senate district
Yes.
are already, so there would be no effect.
Yes.
Unless one town wanted to go to bigger lots.
Of course. So, Barrington. This family had no children, they wanted to sell, they had no heirs, we want to live our life. Went under agreement for $2.5 million. They went to the town and said, we'd love to see that be green forever. Do you want to buy it? If you match the offer, we'll take it. Nope. Nope. Go with God. Have a nice day. Developer comes in, says, calculate it out, for our purposes here, we'll say 100 house lots. One of the leading opponents of all of these bills in the House, with some selectmen, said, whoa, wait a second. No. They changed the zoning at town meeting. They put a warrant article in, put it in, changed the zoning to 3 acres. That $2.5 million purchase and sales fell to below $900,000. Those 100 homes fell to about 47. Because 3 selectmen said, we don't like that idea. We're gonna take your inheritance, your money, your land, and we're gonna tell you what to do with it. Ladies and gentlemen, at what point in time did we go on bended knee saying, Master, may I please do this to my own property? They complied with the zoning. They did everything right, and 3 selectmen said, no, we don't like it. We shall pass judgment. This is not about zoning or local control. This is about your personal personal property rights. When do we change one master for the other? We're cutting state regulations. We're taking the DOT permits from 18 months to 60 days. We're taking DES. These gentlemen here, from testimony and advocacy, DES is a 3-stop process. When George wants to do a development, he's got to go to the Natural Heritage Bureau, where 2 people decide what plants are within that space. If they deem it fit, they'll stamp it, move to Fish and Game. Fish and Game will say, ooh, are there any turtles? Are there any yellow snakes up there? Perfect. Stamp, then that goes. Then that goes to DES and all that planning. Scrap the first 2, it's 1 point person at DES to walk you through your whole process. You folks as taxpayers pay 0. Developers pay all of that for that process. Why should you have to pay for him to make money? Let him pay.
I'm confused. So we live in Amherst, so we don't have an issue, as Tim said. But the complaints that I've heard, and I haven't researched these bills well because they didn't affect me as much, but the complaints I heard was that to do the zoning brings the kids in, which floats the big $50 million bond budget that we just reduced. We voted down $53 million, $83 million, $46 million, $53 million, 3 years in a row now. Because it was gonna increase my property taxes $1,000 a year. And that was pretty much the same, like his went up 2,000, I don't know, but it was really extreme. And it was because of that this zoning thing has blown up in New Hampshire. So how do you respond to that?
I guess like since when did the Republican Party become the party of anti-kids?
It's not about that.
No,
It's
and
about a
I
property tax.
totally get it. What we're doing is we're looking at, these issues are connected. We're looking at a bloat in a budget. I mean, the superintendent in Goffstown, highest paid in the state, makes more than Governor Ayotte.
That's
When you talk
ridiculous.
about the bloat in the budget, you're talking about administrative and non-teaching
We
personnel.
agree.
It's all that, but these are all connected, right? So you're ballooning in property taxes while student population's declining
Yeah.
and student outcomes are getting
Yes.
worse.
Yes,
So
that's
I'm
what I'm
frustrated.
saying.
I'm frustrated as much as you. But the solution is not to be anti-children. It's to fight your
Not.
local property taxes.
And also when we're,
Read what's out on Facebook, saying that we're anti-children as Republicans right now
It was
is,
crazy.
it's
It
not
was
a jump, no, it's true.
It's not
I
a
would-
jump to
I would,
say.
I would agree, it's not a jump to say. The things I've read, the vitriol I've read
It's
on
horrible.
in Amherst, right? We don't want any more kids here because it'll be
We're
expensive. Let's do better with the school. Let's figure that part out. Come run for school board with me. I'm lonely.
Why don't we figure out what an adequate education is, and then you know how to fund it.
But none of that.
and so you folks have been advocates on educational choice, and we're doing that. As you all know, and it's to remind you, that the student population is dropping so much that schools are closing and being converted to housing.
Can you tell us
So there's
before this, so they
expansion.
don't come back with a $50 million bond next year?
Let me respond to your question or comment about adequate education and what it costs to fund it. How long you lived in New Hampshire?
Oh, I've been up here over 40 years and I was in the State House too about it.
So were you there in '96 and? when
No, I was
there?
there in 2005, 2006.
So you just missed it, okay. So I think I'm probably the only one who was here, that lived through Claremont 1 and 2.
I remember
Actually,
Claremont.
no, Representative Daniels was there with me, my apologies.
But my friend Fred T-Boom and everybody in Nashua, we've all followed the
So
Claremont.
together, Representative and then Senator Daniels and I not only defined adequacy, which was step one, we then figured out the cost of adequacy. And then it's been an ongoing fight for the remaining 28 years since, with repeated court decisions. The bottom line is, locally, lower taxes as a result of lower spending.
And the only reason.
It's strictly that simple. And the proof in the adequacy of the education is in the funding. If enrollment comes down
Yep.
and the results, the
Okay.
output, the test scores, like the other sides defined test scores, and believe me, they had plenty of input on exactly what instrument we use. Instruments are good or bad, right? But in general, their side defines what instrument we use and how demographically controlled they are, and you can get into that for 1,000 years. But they pick them. By their own tests, results are bad.
And I get it, but I
And
don't
what we're gonna
even
do,
say
folks, is
Pennsylvanians.
we'd like to hear some of the myths that you folks have heard about housing.
So Amherst does the right thing, which slowed down the spending.
Right.
Ann,
But it's getting harder.
hold on, Ann.
I have heard, and I have not researched all the bells and details, that the 1.5 acre, it's a mandate from the state to all the towns, that if a town wants 5 acre lots, and their planning board and everything has done that they no longer will have control over that, and it's mandated that it has to be 1.5.
First of all, it's 2 acres.
The way SB 84 is drafted is it's a majority, so it's 51% of zoned land, it's not the entire town. So the entire town, 49% of the town, zone residential can be 5 acres if that's what they want. I guess what we're looking at is certain parts of the town.
And if you'd like to sell,
It's 2 acres with adequate infrastructure.
okay, if you'd like to sell 5 acres, a house on 10 acres, you can. The town just can't mandate it. So you could come in, George could find 20 acre parcels. I would like to do 4 homes on 5 acres. And he can do that. The town just can't mandate that.
I think.
And is it 1.5 acres or 2 acres?
Two.
Okay.
Before we go any further, to that point, and you touched on it a little bit, and I'm gonna throw out words I don't understand, that's why you're here. But I think part of the problem with the state is making us do this is that people don't understand the Dillon rule.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, basically, local authority is all granted by state authority. So everything that a local authority, whether it's a board of selectmen, city councilors, aldermen, planning board, whoever, has to be enabled through legislation at the state level.
And there's not one time that we've heard on Facebook or X, what Joe pointed out was this is in our state constitution. Never heard that. What we've heard is hysterical ramblings about the Free Staters have got 100 acres up north, they're gonna put trailer parks all over it, and your life is over, as you know it.
You're right.
And if we don't take Rita, she's
This
gonna,
is the myth. You
if we don't let Rita talk, she's gonna kill me. So we're gonna be-
I don't kill anybody that doesn't need to. So I have a question on how it will, so Dublin, no public water, no public so we have different zoning for different parts of our town. We're in the mountain zone, so we have an 8 acre minimum. In town, it's 1/4 of an acre. So how is the state gonna come in and tell them what to do when it comes to Dublin? Because we've already got it set up so different areas of the town have different zoning rules. So I'm just wondering how that would affect Dublin.
Sure, that you can look at the total package of Dublin, of the areas that are zoned for residential. All as a totality.
Okay.
And it could be like, all right, just for our argument's sake, 5,000 acres is zoned residential. Agriculture is not touched. Retail is not touched. Manufacturing, not touched. It's just residential. Within that, can you get to 51% that is zoned at that half acre, if you're on town water and sewer, which you don't have in Dublin, or 1 acre if you have town water but you have septic, or 2 acres if you need to house a well and a septic. So we'll say 2 acres. If you can get that, that 51%, then you've got it. And that could mean that some of the mountain lots may have to come down in size.
So what if we, as a town, don't want the mountain zone to be cluttered with, what do you call them, accessory houses and all, it's just, they just want, so Dublin's a sleepy little town, and, people move in and out. There's 2 houses on our road, it's a dead end road, that are for sale right now. Now, this little camp should sell for maybe 120,000. It's over 400,000 for this one bedroom, But you can't tell me that all this stuff isn't causing, that should be affordable. But it's not, because some corporation from Colorado is gonna buy it and jack the prices up. And that's what's happened, all of our town is like that. Anybody who puts a house on the market today, it's already under contract. He listed it this morning, and he's got 4 offers.
That's the same.
So-
That's the same in all 234 towns in New Hampshire.
That's the same what?
That's the same in all 234 towns in New Hampshire.
Right, but I don't see how me changing, you guys changing it from an 8-acre lot size on the mountainside to, I don't know, what, 4 or 2?
Well,
That's
it'd
not-
certainly be cheaper to purchase.
But it won't, because you take that 8 acres and it would sell for this much, you take it and make it 4 of them, they could jack the price up on all 4 lots and get way more for them. And that's
But the exclusivity, go ahead, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
because that's exactly what's happened is they said, okay, well, we have this one lot, and now we're gonna subdivide it into 4 lots. So instead of getting, give me a price, $500,000, we can get $2 million, because we can jack the price up on all 4, because people wanna live there.
And I'll respectfully disagree with you, because it's the exclusivity of the communities that warrant those higher prices. If there's only 100 homes in Dublin, when one comes up for sale, it's gonna go for a premium, because there's only 100 homes in Dublin. If you say to Dublin, for our argument's sake, we're gonna take that and we're gonna put 300 homes, okay, there's less demand on living in those towns. It is supply and demand. The higher the supply, the lower that cost would be.
You could.
You're missing what I'm saying.
No, I'm not.
Basics of
I've heard it.
economics, but
It-
I just-
No,
And I'd be happy to I'll look at Dublin, because it's in my neck of the woods anyway, but I'd be happy to look at Dublin and just sort of play out how this could affect things locally. But my guess is, in most communities, this is not gonna be a difficult thing to accommodate. It's going to actually require the local municipalities to look at their zoning maps and look at it with maybe fresher eyes. But having done this for a while, there are a lot of ways that local municipalities can maneuver to make sure that they're getting sort of what they want,
But
even with these mandates.
Can
from
the
the
state come in and say, okay, now you have this many houses, now you have to have town water available to everybody else? They can't do that?
There's 153 bills that touch housing right now, that these representatives.
I'm on science and tech, thank God.
But if you send me Dublin's zoning map, I'll look at it and I'll give you an indication of kind of how I think it would go.
I have a town by town, I was trying to pull up a town by town chart, because I'd be
We
able to
have
see.
1,600 people.
Yeah.
I can get it sent to you and see if Dublin might already comply, we don't know. We don't know what it is.
Yeah, if you have any information that would be helpful, we'd be happy to send it out to our members along with a link to today's talk. We're getting down toward the end of our time as a group, but I thought maybe each one of you might want to take a minute and give the message of the thing that you think is most important about housing, or what you want to leave this group with.
I think just in general, folks, housing is obviously a giant issue for the state. I mean, that comes across in every poll. Everybody who was campaigning for office heard about it. And I think like it's a changing landscape. And so how I've tried to meet change like this when I've seen it in our communities is to be proactive about it. And I think if we are proactive about addressing this housing issue, no matter what happens at the State House, especially with what's proposed, which I don't see as that big a deal, but you know, I understand there are alternate points of view. If you're proactive about housing as a community, as a small town, whatever, this is not going to be the sky is falling type of situation. This is going to be, finally, we caught up with modern times and we took a fresh look at this and we made some thoughtful decisions about the future of our communities. At the same time, we're accommodating this housing crisis and fixing some of these issues that are going on. So I encourage everybody to just stay engaged and be actively thinking about this more and more.
Just one more question.
We're wrapping up now, so
Okay.
any other questions?
I'll ask afterwards.
Absolutely. It's a housing, Jimmy, when your neighbor can't find housing, it's a housing challenge. When you can't find housing, it becomes a housing crisis. This is about local. It's about your local control. One thing that we've done with these, the home builders, which we'll gladly send to you, because we did the bills and we did pros and cons. I sent to a lot of folks. We don't have to agree on all of them. To have a conversation is good. But if you don't like our ideas, what I'd recommend and respectfully ask, give us yours. Every group I go to, I say, you don't like my ideas, what's yours? That usually shuts people up pretty quick. Not this group, because y'all are alphas and blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about that.
Don't tell me
But participate, take a look, and all I ask you, please, look at the bills individually. If you looked at social media, A, it'll give you a migraine, B, but they're lumping them all together as, yeah, it's all zoning, it's all local control. No, it's not. Half of mine they impact local. Most of it touches the state. Most of it touches the county. Please look at them individually and make your decisions on what you can support and can't support. And just please don't lump them all together, please.
I like to say this because we're at a Republican event. What is the Democrat solution to housing? Subsidies,
yeah.
taxes going up, money going out, Section 8 housing everywhere. Did you hear us mention that once? What we're talking about is the Republican solution to housing. And what's odd is like we're divided. We're Republicans. We're divided. But all we're trying to do is relax some of the really egregious local regulations. That's all it is cutting some of the red tape. There's state red tape. There's local red tape. Housing's the number one issue, consistently polling. And I guarantee you, if we don't do anything on housing this year and we lose the House and the Senate, I'm gonna be bitching on Facebook too, because there's gonna be a lot of subsidized Section 8 housing. It's gonna be a dream. And so I challenge you, give me a Republican solution to housing than what we're not doing. So,
Christine?
thank you.
Yes, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming. I just want to, before I let you all go, remind you that the Lilac Luncheon is coming and tickets are on sale. And today is the last day for the member early bird price. So if you were thinking of attending the luncheon at the member price, please do so before midnight. If you're not a member yet, we can help you with that on our website, which is www.nhfrw.org. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you guys.
Thank you.